For more than 50 years, Holdens were Australia's favourite car. In the 1950s, half of all new cars sold here were Holdens. It remained the top-selling car manufacturer until 2002. At Elizabeth in South Australia, they had 3 shifts working around the clock. The plant was so big it had streets named after famous car models, including Tirana and Commodore. It even had its own bank.
Australia, what's your favourite sport?
Football.
Snack?
Ice.
Animal?
Kangaroo.
And what's your favourite car, Australia?
Holden.
Let me see, that's football, meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars, huh?
Right.
Well, you sure sound like Australia to me.
We are.
Well, then you better tell me again, because I just might forget.
We love football, meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars. Football, meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars.
No other car performs like it, because Holden is the only car designed and built for Australia.
Holden built its reputation on making cars in Australia, for Australians and Australian conditions.
The new Australian automobile, designed and tested by General Motors' engineering department.
The brand was a symbol of the nation's identity, earning a legion of loyal fans.
More than 130 Australian-made cars coming off the production line every day.
But all the nostalgia in the world couldn't save Holden from its gamble to continue producing large sedans after the global financial crisis, when the market was demanding smaller cars or SUVs.
We have just informed our employees and our dealer partners, and I can confirm to you that GM has taken the very difficult decision to wind down Holden operations in Australia and New Zealand by 2021.
It was the end of the line for Holden, a company that started in 1856 when James Alexander Holden was making saddles in Adelaide. The firm evolved over the years to making vehicle upholstery and eventually car bodies. In 1928, the famous Holden logo was created with the lion and stone. 3 years later, the American giant General Motors merged with Holden to become GMH. During the war years, Holden's car production was diverted to weapons, aircraft and engines.
It's the first really big public preview of this car, about which Australia has heard so much, and there's an air of excitement.
In 1949, the first Holden went on sale for $733, a staggering 94 weeks' wages for the average worker. But even then, Holden couldn't keep up with demand. The 50s, 60s and 70s were boom times for Holden. In 1953, the iconic FJ Holden was introduced.
Holden, you in my Holden.
By 1962, Holden had sold 1 million cars and was exporting them to Asia, Africa and the Middle East. Ten years later, the company unveiled the HQ Kingswood. It would go on to become the highest-selling Holden of all time. More than 480,000 of them were built in just 4 years. And it entered Australian folklore.
The Kingswood? You'll not take in the Kingswood!
But as storm clouds gathered for the automotive industry, the oil crisis was looming.
Making motor cars is our biggest secondary industry. When it sneezes, the economy catches a cold. At present, it has the sniffles.
Commodore. A new Holden so advanced it will challenge all your ideas about Australian cars.
As the turbulent decade drew to a close, Holden introduced the most popular car to date, the Commodore. It would go on to produce more than 2 million of them.
This is it.
In the 80s, Holden's fortunes began to change as the entire automotive industry struggled. The Falcon eclipsed the Commodore for the first time, and for the next 6 years, it was the country's best-selling Australian car.
Is the moment. Savour it, John.
It was a great contest.
But by the end of the decade, the Commodore had reclaimed its #1 spot.
With an all-new, stronger body, giving you handling and control like never before.
In 1996, the Commodore started its 15-year reign as the nation's favourite car. 10 years later, Holden launched its billion-dollar baby, the VE Commodore, a car completely designed and engineered in Australia from the ground up. But development came at a cost. The federal government injected more than $2 billion into the company as it scrambled to keep Australian car workers in jobs. It was all too little, too late.
This is an investment, not a subsidy. An investment in capacity, skills, innovation.
2 years later, Holden announced it was pulling out of Australia, sacking nearly 3,000 workers.
Today we're announcing that Holden will cease manufacturing in Australia by the end of 2017.
In 2016, the last crews rolled off the production line. 1 month later, the Port Melbourne engine plant closed after 68 years of continuous service and producing more than 10 million engines. A year later, on the 20th of October, the end of shift siren at the Elizabeth plant sounded.
Today is a big day. The last Australian-made Commodore rolled off the line at about 10:45.
It was the death knell for the Australian car manufacturing industry.
Yeah, it's just shattering, absolutely shattering. It's just really sad that it has to all end.
For these 950 Holden employees, an unsure future after working there for so long.
It's been 20 years.
30 years.
53 years. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time here. The amount of people I've met and worked with are probably something I'll remember for the rest of my life.
I've met some fantastic people working here and things that have changed my life.
Life is hard. We are resilient, but we will survive. I wish good luck to us all.
Holden continued to sell imported cars. The company built its reputation by wrapping itself in the Australian flag. But in the end, importing cars and slapping on the Holden badge betrayed the company's roots.
Holden. It's a great way to move, the strength and the power of Holden.
Its demise was reflected in sales figures. Last year, Holden sold just 43,176 new vehicles, the lowest since 1953.
You cannot seem to get to me. I am back with a stolen identity. You know I see through anything. I'm a one-man army with a bitter sting. You give me no reasons. I'm broken to pieces. There's no one who can erase. Stuck inside a frame. You know that's why I don't behave the same. Whenever you are here, I see clear, shed a tear. Don't know if I can pretend all the way to the end. You know the truth is hard to. I lost track of what I wanted. Ever since the party started. If there's a way for me and you, then I know just what to do. I know it doesn't matter. I'm broken
Life is hard. We are resilient, but we will survive. I wish good luck to us all.